armory was heavy with the scent of oil, metal, and silence. A sacred stillness that seemed to hum beneath the rows of rifles and machine guns. Every weapon stood at attention like soldiers themselves, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, waiting for the call that would wake them from their quiet rest. She moved through that space like a ghost and steady, precise, unseen. Her job was simple, or so they thought. Clean, inspect, and log. Rifles, magazines, scopes, all handled with the same care one would give a heartbeat. To the men who passed through, she was just another name on a roster, another uniform with no story worth remembering. No one knew that every movement she made was born of muscle memory forged in the harshest silence imaginable. Her hands didn't just clean. They understood the rhythm of steel. Each click of a bolt, each weight of a trigger spoke to her in a language few could hear. She worked without drawing attention, without complaint, content in her isolation. But that kind of stillness doesn't go unnoticed forever. It happened one thick, humid afternoon, the kind of heat that glued dust to skin. A squad of Special Forces soldiers burst through the doors, loud and alive from an all-day training exercise. They carried the scent of sweat and victory, their laughter filling the room with the rough edge of pride. They were men who lived by competition, who measured themselves in scars and records, and among them stood Sergeant Cole Maddox, the sniper everyone whispered about. Maddox wasn't just skilled. He was legendary. The kind of soldier who made impossible shots sound routine, who treated distance like an illusion he could bend with his trigger finger. His confidence filled the room before he spoke a single word. When his gaze fell on her, wiping down a .50 caliber rifle, his smirk spread slow and deliberate. He saw not a soldier, not an equal, just an armory clerk who had no business touching the tools of gods. You ever even fired one of those? His voice was loud, cutting through the chatter like a blade. The others turned, waiting for her to fumble, to blush, to retreat. But she didn't. She simply continued her work, eyes steady, movements calm. Her silence was her armor. Yet to men like Maddox, silence only smelled like fear. He leaned against a table, arms crossed, his grin sharp. Tell you what, Armory girl, there's a ridge 3 clicks out, 3,800 meters. That's beyond what most snipers can dream of hitting. I'll bet every stripe on my sleeve you can't even scratch the target. The laughter that followed was cruel, mocking, but when she finally set the rifle down, the sound died. Her gaze lifted, cold and unblinking. Set up the target, she said softly. The challenge was accepted before anyone could talk her out of it. They all followed Maddox out to the ridge, a group of doubters hungry for entertainment. The desert spread out before them, vast and endless, the sun bleeding orange and purple into the horizon. Heat shimmered off the dunes and the wind whispered like a warning. Maddox set the steel target far beyond reason, so distant it looked like a mirage. Bets were made. Cigarettes changed hands. No one believed she'd land even a single hit. They expected embarrassment, a short story to laugh about later over drinks. But when she lay prone in the sand, the rifle cradled against her shoulder, something in her body language changed. It was as if the earth itself had quieted for her. The men's laughter dimmed to murmurs, then to silence. She adjusted her scope, calculating everything. Distance, humidity, wind drift, bullet drop, even the curvature of the earth. To the untrained eye, she was just staring. But in her mind, she was solving the universe. They didn't know her story, how she'd been raised by a father who taught her that survival was not a right, but a skill. How as a child she hunted through fog and snow, hitting targets that were nothing but shadows between trees. How every mistake meant an empty stomach or worse. She had learned to breathe with the wind, to see movement before it existed. By the time she was old enough to hold a rifle, she could already outshoot the men who tried to teach her. Her heartbeat slowed, each inhale measured. The world shrank to a single line through the scope. Then, the shot. The rifle thundered, its recoil kicking into her shoulder like a living thing. Dust burst around her, echo fading into the endless sky. The target didn't move. The men behind her laughed again. Told you, Maddox sneered. Not even close, but she didn't rise. She didn't speak. She adjusted. Slight wind shift, 2 degrees left. Breath steady, finger light. The second shot split the air. A heartbeat passed. Then, clang, the laughter stopped. The men exchanged looks. Someone muttered, "No way." She reloaded. Third shot. Another clang. Then a fourth. Fifth. each one true, ringing out across the desert like a prophecy fulfilled. By the last round, Maddox's grin had disappeared. He stood stiff, his pride dissolving under the weight of every perfect hit. When she rose, brushing sand from her fatigues, she looked at no one. There was nothing to prove anymore. The sound of those impacts had spoken louder than words ever could. The men stared after her in stunned silence as she walked away. The quiet Armory clerk who had rewritten what they thought was possible. That night, the story spread faster than fire. The whispers reached every corner of the base, how a woman from the Armory had outshot the sniper of snipers. Some said it was luck. Others said it was impossible. But those who had seen it with their own eyes knew the truth. She wasn't lucky. She was lethal. No one called her Armory Girl after that day. She became something else, a legend wrapped in silence. Some called her the Ghost, others the Shadow. Rumors claimed she had once been Special Forces herself, that she'd seen combat before vanishing into the quiet refuge of the Armory. Some said she refused to return to the field because she'd already buried too many memories there. As for Maddox, he never challenged her again. Every time his hand brushed his rifle, he remembered the sound of steel echoing across the desert, a melody of humility that would haunt him for years. In the months that followed, soldiers passing through the Armory lowered their voices when she entered. Respect replaced mockery. And sometimes, when no one was watching, a few of them would pause, eyes lingering on her steady hands, wondering what kind of history lay hidden behind her silence. Because they all knew one truth now: legends don't always wear medals, and heroes don't always seek glory. Some just carry their skill like a secret, waiting for the one moment the world dares to doubt them. And on that ridge, 3,800 meters away, the steel still bore her mark. 5 perfect strikes that would never fade, no matter how many storms passed through that desert.